Amore mio, amore, amore. Hai mestiere, amore mio.
I am Ronan Chris Murphy, and welcome to another episode of Ronan's Recording Show. I guess the alternate intro and the perhaps slightly less than academic tenor of my Shure KSM32 coverage might require a little bit of an explanation. And it's simply this. This whole show is really about checking stuff out, bringing you guys along for the ride, and also sharing a lot of the techniques and tools that have helped me a lot in my daily professional work. And I thought I definitely got to do a review of the Shure KSM32. And as I started thinking about putting it together, actually over a year ago I thought about this episode, it dawned on me I'm not going to do a review. I'm just kind of in love with this thing, and I'm just pretty much going to gush about it. And the part of it that's kind of funny is everybody who really knows me and has talked to gear knows I'm kind of in love with this microphone. But even better yet, lots of people have made fun of me for loving this microphone because it doesn't carry one of the really expensive, prestigious brand badges on it. So, even on the forums when I've suggested it to many, many people for different sources, like, oh God, Ronan and his Shure KSM32 again. But so I'm happy to come in here and champion something I love, even if a lot of other people think maybe it's not the coolest Pro Tool in the world. But before we get to that, I just want to share one quick announcement, and that is I haven't been able to do a lot of shows lately because these have been some of the busiest months of my life. Juggling a bunch of projects over in Europe and here in the US, and also putting together the Recording Fest. And I'll do some more about that later, but if you want to hear about it a bit more, go over and check out the Home Recording Show. HomeRecordingShow.com, episode or show number 109, and they do, I think, over 20 minutes of coverage about the event. So you can check that out, and also it's a really cool podcast, and if you're into my show, I have a feeling you'll very much dig what they do over there as well. Now, let's get back to the love affair. So to explain my love affair with the Shure KSM32, I should probably go back to the beginning. Back in the 90s, I was doing a ton of progressive rock stuff. I still do a fair amount of it, but I was working with a lot of the biggies, a lot of records with King Crimson and Terry Bozzio and Tony Levin and Steve Morse and those kind of folks. And I got approached by two guys at Shure who had just worked on this new microphone. Turns out that they were big progressive rock fans, and I think they wanted, the guy who was making records with King Crimson to check out this new mic they had just done. Super nice guys, so I arranged a demo, and I'd always liked a lot of Shure mics in the past. And the next thing I had on the docket was this crazy, insane, intense month of amazing amount of work and not much time. So I booked out a month solid at Paradise Sound in Index, Washington. That's about an hour outside of Seattle. And Paradise Sound is my favorite studio in the entire world. Just absolutely in love with it. Great rooms, cool people, amazing, beautiful views, and everything. So anyway, I'd booked it out, and I'd flown my friend Max Bacchine, a great engineer from Italy, to come over and help me with some of the engineering, because it was so chaotic. And we started rolling into it, and I realized I wanted to try out this mic, but man, we had so much work to do. And we were going to do 2 full albums from beginning to end, one 5 or 6 song EP from beginning to end, overdubs on one album and mix the entire album, and I think a 3-song EP or something with another artist. And so insane 30-something tracks we were going to be doing. And first up on the docket was this 5-song EP for this kind of indie rock band from Seattle. And you know, we were setting things up and I wanted to check out the Shure, but it was so busy. I thought, nice guys, but I cannot spend this precious little time goofing around with a new mic right now. So we started setting up the drums. We got the drums exactly the way we wanted them to sound in the room. And, you know, I put up a couple of my, one or two of my usual staples. You know, some Neumann U87s probably, or maybe some 414s, and it wasn't happening. So I asked Max, let's swap out the overhead. So we swapped from the U87s to the 414s. Not happening. You know, we swapped out to, I think, Neumann U67s. Paradise Sound has an awesome mic cabinet. And we kept swapping out all these different mics, and it just was not delivering what I needed, because I like to be able to push up my overhead mics and have a pretty darn good sound. So I said, hey Max, run and get those new Shures and let's see how they work on the overheads. So we went, we put them up on the mics, on the overheads, pushed up the faders, and bingo, that was exactly the sound I was hunting around for. And worth noting that since then, the last 13 years or so, the Shure KSM32s have been my overhead mics on probably 90% of the drum sets I've ever recorded since then. Whether it's folk, acoustic jazz, or extreme metal, the KSM32s just keep delivering over and over again. So anyway, we tracked the drums, that worked out great, and then we were doing a vocal mic shootout, and which I always try and do whenever I can. And we put up a bunch of great usual choices for vocal mics, and I said, hey Max, let's put up the new Shure and see how that works. And so we did our shootouts through maybe 5 or 6 different mics. It came down to a dead even tie between the Shure KSM32 and a Neumann U47. I think it even had the original V14 tube in it. Our jaws were on the floor, and the love affair had begun. It's worth noting that the next record up on the docket in this crazy period, they were magic on the overheads again, exactly what we were looking for. But we did the same shootout with the same microphones, and on the next vocalist, one of the other mics ended up being a much better choice, because vocals and mics, it's always a unique thing that you really need to test to know what's going to go on. But the love affair had begun, and the Shure KSM32 from that point on has become a very important integral part to virtually all of my professional recording work. So you don't have to trust me on any of this, but let me show you a quick example of why I'm so in love with this as drum overheads, and what I mean when I talk about this mic being really good at capturing a full range with smooth extended top end. This recording is a drum recording, a very full range drum recording. The drummer is actually Terry Bozio with the big full kit, and what you're going to hear is a 3 mic drum recording here, which is a spaced pair of overheads and 1 kick drum mic. It is KSM32s on the overheads going into A-Design's Pacifica mic pre's with a pad switch in, and the D112 is going into a Pacifica also with a pad switch in. Aside from compression, there is no processing of any sort on this sample that you're about to hear. So it's just the sound of the mics on a great sound source into very good mic preamps. So if you're not familiar with it, here it is. It's actually what would be termed a medium diaphragm condenser. So it's actually smaller than some diaphragm in there than something like a Neumann U87 or a 414 or something like that. It comes with this custom shock mount, which is actually pretty cool. Just drops in and screws in nice and secure. It's got a 15 dB pad and 2 different settings for high pass filtering. And the other option is this here, this non-shock mount version if you need to creep in closer to a spot or don't need the shock mount. So very good, uses that same sort of screw in the bottom strategy that is used here. But what I've grown to really love about this mic is that it sounds good on almost everything. It's a microphone that tends to not overly flatter anything, but to give a really good representation of what you put in front of it. So I use it on, again, almost every drum overhead I ever record, most percussion, many voices of my own voice. It's actually the best microphone I own for my own particular voice. And I'll use it on everything. I don't use condensers on electric guitars a lot, but I've used this with some success. And the things that are interesting or, characteristic of this microphone to me is it has a very solid defined mid-range, which a lot of condensers don't. Many kind of feel a little scooped out, so you'll get a little extra excitement on the top and the bottom, but you don't get as much of the detail and clarity of the mids and the low mids. That's one of the reasons I like it so much on drums, is that you really kind of hear the wood in the toms and the body of the snare drum and the sort of meat of the cymbals. But the second reason I like it ties into this. It has a very forgiving top end. What I mean by forgiving is if you record something that's really bright and abrasive, it actually doesn't enhance the ugly characteristics on the top. So if you've got a guy who just bashes really hard on crash ride cymbals or hi-hats, or if you have an octave, really high octave trumpet part or some really aggressive source, I use this on bagpipes, it can actually record that in a way that doesn't get ugly and harsh, whereas a lot of condensers, especially the sort of really low-cost import microphones, can sound really harsh and abrasive if they're recording really bright, exciting top-end material. And that brings me to another thing that many people on their first listen of this might be a little disappointed. If you're used to the low-cost import condenser microphones, you're probably used to a very bright and hyped up top end. And I've never even bothered to look at a graph on this, but it just sounds very smooth and flat out. So it's not going to give you that artificial high-end excitement, distortion, and boost. But that said, it takes EQ very well. So if you need that bright presence and forwardness later down the road, it's really easy to boost with some high-end EQ. And again, unlike some of the cheap import condensers, it will not get harsh when you start to boost up the high end. You could be forgiven if thinking what I just described sounds a lot like a new modern ribbon microphone. And well, there's a good reason for that. Many times I actually reach for the Shure KSM32 in situations where many people would often reach for a modern ribbon microphone. And not to diss those, because there's a lot of fantastic ones, but many times when people are going for a modern ribbon mic as opposed to the old RCA 77 styles or Coles 4038 styles, they're looking for a kind of extended top end, but one that doesn't get harsh. So in many situations I find I can actually use this microphone in situations where I might naturally gravitate to one of those great modern ribbon microphones. And so to me it's kind of like a condenser microphone with the forgiving top end of a modern ribbon. So very cool. And like I said, I've used this on, the list is just too long to even mention. And of course people have laughed at me about that, because this is a mic that's about $500 and I've seen them go for as low as almost $200 on eBay. So this is a pretty darn cheap mic in the grander scheme of things. And all that said, you do not need to trust me. I strongly recommend, if you're considering this, get one and set up some blind level match shootouts. So just do some A/B tests, especially where you do not know which is which, And you might be pleasantly surprised. There have been so many shootouts I've been involved with where this simple, rather inexpensive mic has beat microphones costing 5 times as much. It happens so often that it never even surprises me anymore. So it's a very, very cool microphone. I'm not really giving much of a review. I'm just gushing about something I really love. But this cannot be all gushy and rosy. There's one thing I'm bummed about, and that is this clip that we talked about earlier. It's a very cool design, but if an intern knocks over the mic stand and breaks this, Shure is going to charge you almost $75 for this one little clip. And I understand they got to make some money, but it's really hard to spend $75, you know, as much as the cost of a cheaper microphone by some other companies just for this little adapter clip. So that's the one thing that I would say that keeps this from being a 100% rosy, over-the-top review. But the bottom line is this has become one of the most important tools in my recording toolbox, and very worth checking out. So let me dig through the archives and just pull up a couple tiny little samples of places I use this in action. So there is my KSM32 love story, and before I let you go, I just want to shout out about one other pretty cool thing. I just got a sample of these sent to me. Bongo ties actually got sent to me a few weeks ago, and they're billed as whatever, fancy pants cable ties, the most green ties ever, which is something I can't vouch for or argue against, but it's basically this little piece of bamboo with this really heavy duty rubber band. Almost seems like the quality of something that would be a belt on an engine. And it's basically a cable wrap. Very cool. What I like about it is it's enabled me to really tighten some stuff up when I'm putting cables together in a way that can get a little tighter and closer than what Velcro cable ties usually do, which is mostly what I use. But what inspired me to actually give this thing a shout out today is that when I was setting up my light, the softbox over there, I've got a problem with the stand. Something is stripped and it doesn't really stay up on its own, and a bongo tie saved the day and actually allowed me to mount up that softbox light exactly where I needed it to. So I thought, if this softbox if this bongo tie actually saved the day for this episode, they've earned themselves a little shootout. And they come in 10 packs. I think they're about $5 or so, but I'm not sure. I didn't buy these. I just got a sample pack sent to me. So there we go. Have fun, and I'll get you guys some more episodes up as soon as I can. And don't forget to check out the home recording show if you want to hear a little coverage of the amazing success we had at Recording Fest 2011. Alrighty, bye. Thanks a lot.